What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Coach Ken with Giving It a Try. We have a special episode today. I was talking to Coach Ryan earlier in the week. We were collabing on a few things, and I said I really want to come up with some good stories and some more content for the podcast. And he was bringing up just some other things he heard on other podcasts. And then we came up with this idea. Then I said, you know what? I have an athlete call coming up at the end of the week. We're going to recap an Ironman race that he just did, his first Ironman. And I was like, why? I have such great conversations with these athletes. Why wouldn't I want to start recording some of these? So this will kind of be the first true coached athlete race recap. I did one earlier with a 50K, first 50K athlete, but what we want to do is introduce Jack Walsh. He's an age group athlete who just completed and competed. So I did ruin the storyline there. You did complete it. Ironman, full Ironman was Madison, Wisconsin. Awesome to have you on here, Jack. I'll just give you a little intro for everybody on how we connected. We connected back in 2024. I was looking back in your file and things like that. For our original consult, completed an Olympic triathlon last fall. And then through the fall, we kind of started and linked up really, truly training. And we'll get into that in January. Introduce yourself, just your intro into like endurance sports, why triathlon, and then kind of like why did you reach out for that Ironman race? So welcome, Jack, and take the stage for a little bit.
Appreciate it, Ken. This is the first podcast I've ever done, so we'll see how it goes. But I grew up basically playing sports and being super active, like a lot of people. Played sports in high school pretty competitively. Went to school in New Orleans, which is a place where you can eat a lot and drink a lot and not stay super active. And then in COVID, I really kind of like got back into working out, right? Just going to the gym in my building because you couldn't really go anywhere. And that started to progress, I would say, into me running a little bit, just starting out with like a mile here, a couple miles there. And I got a lot more into running. And this is probably 4 years ago at this point, but started running a lot more. And then over the course, nothing serious, just like staying fit, I guess, or trying to stay fit on top of lifting. And then I really liked running and I started doing it more and more and more. And ultimately my knee started to flare up, which this is, a story that'll be told over again, but I had just patellar tendonitis. I was like, yeah, I need to take a break from running for a little bit. And I always knew that I wanted to do some sort of event, like a marathon. I was always thinking marathon, although it didn't really sound great to me either way. So I started biking a lot. And as I thought about it more, it was like, triathlon sounds interesting. I'm a good swimmer. I grew up on lakes and oceans, and like swimming doesn't scare me. Not that I'm like a great swimmer, but I'm just comfortable and confident in the water. So it's like, all right, you can run, you can bike, you can swim. Yeah, it just kind of all made sense. Like, hey, let's see what we can do with triathlon here. And as I got more into it, like Ironman is a great marketing beast with their Instagram and YouTubes and everything. So I was like kind of just constantly looking at Ironman videos and motivational Ironman stuff. And it was like, I'm going to do an Ironman. And I think it was like a year and a half ago, I said I was going to do it. And obviously like there's been a lot of progression since then and working with you. And I was just looking for coaches on the Ironman website, I think. And you were on there and frankly, a little bit more affordable than some of them in the New York State region. So I was like, all right, let's reach out to Coach Ken and get something going.
Yeah, I look back on your coaching, the consult form, which I think I had backdated from July. We originally did our first like talk. And just so people can understand like where you can be and where you can get, because you may have the same type of feelings about yourself. You wrote you were strongish biker, mediocre runner with slight knee problems, and a strong foundation for swimming. And just started doing some real true swim training. So that could just go to show that, again, everybody's journey is different, but that was July of 24. And then you competed in your event a couple weeks ago here in, over basically a year. So with the right, proper structured training and all that going forward and doing it smartly, we were able to connect the dots and be able to even just talk about this race, this post race. So there we go. Ironman, you had it in you. You talked about it. You wanted to do that. You wanted to do a half Ironman leading up to that, which you did. You did Muscle Man as a prep race through your training. That was in July, and we'll kind of touch on that with the training in a little bit. And then you had to kind of choose an Ironman at that point, right? So, when you reached out, I said, "Oh, Wisconsin." That piqued my interest because I hadn't trained an athlete for that course yet. And so anytime someone does a new course, I also get to learn about that course and stuff along the way as well for future athletes that might want to do it, or a recommendation for that race. So real quick, why, I guess we're in the Northeast, so there's other races that are a little more popular to go to for the Ironman distance, but not too bad. But what made you choose Wisconsin, Madison?
Knew I was going to do Wisconsin. Like as soon as I said I'm going to do an Ironman, I said I'm doing Ironman Wisconsin. We are in the Northeast. You can tell I'm in a tiny New York apartment right now. That actually isn't mine, but I'm from Chicago and grew up going to Wisconsin basically for the entire summer. We'd spend 3 months at a time there, literally, and my dad would drive up on weekends, whatever. I still go up there all the time with friends. We spend a lot of time there still. It's 3 hours from, actually, it's less. It's 2 hours from Chicago, about an hour from where we go. So it was easy for my family to get to. Friends could go. Felt confident about doing it in Wisconsin. So it was always in my head like, hey, you're going to do Ironman Wisconsin if you're going to do an Ironman. And it wasn't really like, I wasn't really exploring other options.
Nice, good. And then let's with the training wise, starting off, like I look back in Training Peaks when we linked. I was like, when did we first start really programming your training for this? And it was starting like mid-January. And when I look back, I said, where was the starting point? And at that point, I look back, I was like, oh wow, this is another one of the athletes that I started with, like a walk run program back to running at the time for the situation you were in. And yeah, like looking up, walk run protocols for a couple weeks, building consistency. January and February were very kind of light months, just prepping you, getting you back into the routine of getting some structured bike workouts, getting back to steady running. So really, how did you, I guess the beginning part of your training, how was the first few months of just getting into structured training one-to-one with a coach?
I do well with structure. And I think a little bit of a backstory is I was aiming to do a half Ironman in December, as you know, in Florida. So I had done an Olympic, loved it, was starting to do the training, planning to start to do the training for
Briefly.
the half in Florida, and ultimately tore my meniscus. So wasn't able to do that. And then I had surgery on it in December, and you just had the same thing happen, which sucks, but it's a quick recovery, luckily. So yeah, I mean, I was hungry to get back into training. It's a lot of time, obviously, but it's nice to work with a coach like yourself, who obviously knows what they're doing, who can just tells you what you need to do, right? You don't have to think about it. If you're someone who can just follow the program and not like go rogue and try to do your own thing, then you'll do really well with it. And I think a huge part of it for me is like, hey, I'm not feeling well, or I got some stuff going on. Like, can we change this schedule around here? Can we swap some days? And not having to stress over, well, what do I need to do today? Or do I need to make up to like let a coach, a professional like yourself handle all of that crap that frankly you don't know what you're doing with. So it makes it a lot easier to get into a training structure when you have that.
Yeah, one of the bigger, I guess, hangups with some people and their training is, you said, when you're starting to have to build towards a race and these workouts are becoming important, we're not just in a base building phases. When things come up in life or the weekend, like my long stuff, like I have a problem getting it in Saturday, Sunday, I have to readjust. A lot of people just think they can make the workout up. If I miss 2 days, I'll just make it up Monday, Tuesday. I'll do double sessions Wednesday, Thursday, and it just becomes this spiral. Like there's a reason why you miss the workouts, whether you're sick or life or stress or you have work or there's some other factor. We're age group humans here. We're just mere mortals in the world of endurance who have to balance it all. So yeah, that's one of the base things. I think is people are why they get kind of like attracted to coaching and go that route with it. But you progressed nicely. Like it was a smooth entrance into that. I had another past athlete, same thing, coming off an injury. I think it was a back to running program as well. She was basically in the same time frame a couple years ago, and she even qualified for world championships at Lake Placid that year because she did all the smart work with a run walk protocol coming back. So it's just why I'm telling people that is, no matter what situation you're in, your goals are never too big if you do it properly with the right time frame to be able to get to where you want it to go. So then we just like hammered through that. We progressed, and then you fell into a perfect timing. You did Chicago half marathon along the way, but that was already into the Ironman plan. Just looking back, you had a nice 20-week period, a true 20-week block. We also had Muscle Man, so you started up a little early for that. You started training for Muscle Man at the beginning of March. We were leading up into that, which was good because it kind of prepped you a little for more where you should have been during the plan. And then we pivoted. As soon as you finished Muscle Man, we just continued building into your Ironman. Really scrolling back, lots of green boxes on Training Peaks up until Muscle Man. Took a little rest period for a couple days and just hammered back into it. You balanced your life, literally 1 mile at a time through the entire process, and just hammering it out. Overall, like before we talk about the race and get into the nuts and bolts of that, anything about the training that good, bad, and different through the way there. You got it done on my eyes. Like looking at it, if I shared this with another coach, they'd be like, dude, put the work in. So you definitely did that. Any final thoughts on how the training went, how it was structured, or anything like that?
It's obviously a lot, right? Like it's a ton of time. It's a lot of weekends, but I really, I love doing it. And it was something like a lot of work that I put in. I haven't really put that much work into something outside of work in a long time. And a big part of it is for me was just like being smart. Yeah, you're trying to check all the boxes, you're trying to hit all the workouts, but like you need to do the things outside of the workouts that also are going to lead to success with stretching and fueling and not going out sometimes. And if you're not feeling 100%, like maybe dial it back a little bit, which I'm not great with. I'm sure most athletes that are doing Ironmans, like we can just push through it, but it ends up kind of biting you in the ass. So I think, just sticking to the plan, listening to you, doing what I need to do is it's like not that hard of a formula. If you're willing to put in the work, you can get it done.
Yeah, if you're good at just constructive criticism on the fact that, hey, maybe you're pushing a little too hard, or being able to throttle back a little bit, if you're okay with that. Again, it's that like initial buy-in, that kind of like ego check is like, not that everything has to be like, you're not going to impress, for me anyway, I tell my athletes, you're not going to impress me by putting up faster times every run. You're going to impress me by when we have a standard that we need to do for this easy run, this tempo run, that we fall within that range. That means you're being smart. That means you're doing all the things you wanted to do. I do like the point you made though of, again, Ironman or endurance training, racing in general, is good for the self, the person. Like you said, you're a business professional. It's very easy to just dive into the world of chasing your business, your career, making more money. Like that, all that stuff is great. But when you're able to take time out, even if it's just for 1 year, to do something awesome, something putting yourself outside there where it will change you for the better, even though this is kind of like, yeah, Ironman can get expensive, with the training and the gear and all that, and traveling, but it does inevitably at the end of the day change you and change you as a person because of all this time. Like people see, oh, cool, you did an Ironman. Like that sometimes is the end of the conversation. But myself and the coached athletes in the community, like we can see that you were invested in this for months and months and months, and the amount of work and hours upon hours that you put in to get to this result. So congratulations on that, getting to the race. That's the biggest part of it, is like being able to get to the race pretty healthy at the start line and feeling confident. And that's another thing too that I want to talk about is your confidence. When we spoke about the pre-race briefing before the race, I have that conversation with most of the athletes for their A races, and yours was a little different just because you had a lot of confidence. And that's not cockiness. It wasn't that. It was confidence. Whether you in the back of your head had a couple doubts, but it just if I put out there that I'm confident, you will be confident. But that's a big thing. Um, just discuss that real quick, is like your motivation going into race week, of that confidence that you had. You were basically like, we're doing it. I'm pumped. Like that's the conversation you need to have. Even if you have a little race anxiety, that has to be the words coming out of your mouth, because that's what's going to happen. So, how was that? How are you fueling into that confidence boost going into the race and getting yourself psyched up?
Yeah, I felt good. If you had skipped 20 different workouts and weren't doing the long workouts, it's probably a different story. I didn't feel super confident about, naturally, I didn't feel super confident about doing the full before the half. So it's like leading up to the half, I'm thinking to myself, you're going to crush this. You're ready for it. You put in the work, but I don't know how the hell you're going to do the full. But it's literally as soon as I finished the half, it's like, all right, you had some gas in the tank. You did a good job on that. Muscle Man was, we have to get into it, but
that could be an episode all in itself.
Yeah, exactly. That was a brutal day. So it's like, all right, you got through that. You're ready for it. So, of course, there's doubts you have here and there, and it's the little things. It's not, am I prepared? Am I going to finish? Is my bike going to break? They're going to be crazy chop with the swim. Is it going to be super hot? But those are the things you can't control, right? So it's like if you can just ignore those and just appreciate the fact that you can't control them, and you're going to, I think one thing you said to me early on was just run your race or race your race, maybe. And that was something I constantly kept thinking about during the full Ironman. It's just like race your race. Don't worry about if people are going faster. Enjoy it. So if you're doing all the things you need to be doing and you're not stressing over the little things that you really can't control, I think it's pretty easy to feel good going into a race day.
That's it. Focusing on what you did, what you can control, and then those outside factors. Hey, you're going to get punched in the face at some point out there on a race, especially in an Ironman distance. You're out there more than half the day. Something's going to happen. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to adapt. Very rarely does people have this magical race day from start to finish where it was everything I envisioned and it was this wonderful day with a PR and, off to the next one. So here we go. Race week. We're going Ironman, Wisconsin, pulling up the website here. If someone was looking at this race, they're going to look at the website on Ironman. They're going to say, all right, it's a lake swim, says it's a rolling bike. It's a hilly run, says the high air temperature is 50 degrees, low air temperature 35 degrees, and an average water temperature of 75 degrees. So I kind of like to talk to people too about that. Like they throw out averages and stuff on there. Before we dive into how each leg went, okay, lake swim. They can't mess that up. Yep, you swam in a lake, right?
Yep.
Check that box. Would you consider? We'll get more into the bike course, but would you consider the bike a rolling bike course? Okay. And what about the run? No, how does it actually says hilly for the run? So would you consider that it was hilly?
No, we can get into what the course actually looked like. I felt like it was pretty flat for the most part, the run. I mean, there's a few parts that were a little steep, but it was pretty flat, I thought.
I think it's all relative to kind of where you train as well. Like maybe if somebody came out from the Midwest or in the plains where it's just flat ground, they never see elevation when they're running. You're in New York City, so you had the ability. Central Park's pretty hilly. People that train in and around there, they just kind of get used to it as the norm. So it kind of is a little easier for these races in the Northeast if you're coming out of somewhere where you can do some of that training at elevation.
For
So
sure.
race day temperature, though, what was the average temp? What was the temp the morning when you kind of got to the swim start? And then what did it get up to on race day?
It was cold in the morning for sure. I think it was high 40s right when I got up, which was 4:30 in the morning, whatever it is. So it was chilly for sure. I think when I got in the water, it was about mid 50s. The water was warmer than the air temp, and then it never got hot. It was a perfect day for racing. I think it was like 68, maybe between 68 and 72, pretty much all day, with some overcast. So it was, I think most triathletes would say a picture perfect day for racing.
Which is good temperature wise. So you can expect, and they even say on the website, so a cooler, less, or not really, or maybe just mild as most, hopefully temperature for a race here in Madison. Low air temp 35. So again, it fell within there of what they anticipate year after year at this race. Do you remember what the actual official water temperature was the day before the race going into it?
No, I don't. I think it was high 60s, maybe like 70, but I don't
Okay.
remember.
But wetsuit legal, were you able to wear a wetsuit and all that?
Wetsuit legal. Everyone was wearing a wetsuit. So some sleeveless, but everyone was in a wetsuit.
Good. All right. Perfect. So that's a good thing people would like to hear as well. So breaking it down, early morning, headed into race week. We spoke real quick when you were checking in there. Waking up in the morning, swim start. How was the swim out there? It is obviously, yep, lake swim, 2.4 miles. Just give us a run through of kind of how the swim went out on the swim course.
Yeah, you mentioned getting punched in the face during an Ironman. Felt like I got punched in the face immediately by Mike Tyson. I said I'm confident with the swim. I feel comfortable in the water. I struggled the entire swim. I got in the water. I was feeling good. Like I slept decent, which I didn't do before Muscle Man, before even the Olympic. So I felt good waking up. And I got in the water and just didn't feel, I felt physically good. Mentally, I was not there where I wanted to be. I kept, for whatever reason, thinking I was the last person in the entire swim, even though I started in the middle of the pack. And I was literally like looking back, and I was in my head for the swim really the whole time, honestly. So an hour and a half of that pretty much. a little TMI, but I had to use the bathroom with 10 minutes into it. And it's like, well, you got an hour and 20 minutes left. So you better keep going. There's obviously a lot
As
of
in the bathroom, you can't do in the water.
right. Yes. Yeah. So I think one thing that you told me, which helped a lot, was if you need to stop in the swim and kind of collect yourself, do it, which I did twice. So I grabbed onto a buoy and was like, you're good. There's 1,000 people behind you. You're not the last one. You're going to finish the swim. So it was a struggle for sure. I was not anticipating that. And it was a grind. It was a long swim. You're getting kicked. Everyone's trying to get, understandably, worry about themselves. You're in the water. But I will say the Madison spectating is amazing. They have I forget it's called, the Vertex or the Helix, and you can just see people everywhere. If you pick your head up out of the water, you can hear people yelling. Like, it's a really cool scene, and that was the silver lining with the swim. But it took an hour and 35 minutes, I think, and I was planning for an hour and a half, which was actually decent for how I was feeling and just all things considered. So the swim was really tough, but I got out of the water and, like I said, everyone's going nuts. My mom, my dad, my sisters, and my best friend were standing there. So as soon as I got out of the water, it was like smile on my face. All right, we have the rest of the day to go. That's over. Let's do it.
So with the swim, pretty good though overall. Ironman's able to track your split at the first lap, 1.2 miles in, and then the second. So your first 1.2 miles, 45:22. Yes, for those that don't know, Muscleman swim was a disaster this year. It was pretty choppy. And your half swim, which I have here, was 49:13. So it was a good progression actually from even Muscleman on that 1.2 miles, and then finishing up at 135. So it's not that much of a fall off for the second lap there. Inevitably, you're just going to be tired and enough of this swimming at that point. So we actually, like you said, our two kind of pacing plans we threw out there when we talked originally were kind of throwing you in that 130 range. So to have 135, that's not bad on a swim. Again, swim is a big unknown depending on the conditions, how you feel out there. Some people just get into a groove, or some days you're just like, yeah, it's just rough, man. I just was getting through it. But you got through it, came out, went into transition there. I'm sure you probably took care of business there, but any tips for your first Ironman transition headed to get your bike?
I took my time, as the numbers show. I think it was 17 minutes, and I actually had a buddy who's never done triathlon text me, hey, you crushed it. What happened in the first transition? It's like, dude, give me a break here. Yeah, I took my time, and I think it paid dividends. I did what I needed to do. I kind of collected myself. I sat down for a minute. I think I ate something really quick. It was also, I run cold, so like getting out of the water and it's 50 degrees or whatever, like it was freaking cold. Other people were feeling the same way. So I collected myself. Also, the transition in Madison's tough. You're running, for a few minutes, and then you have to run up this helix and you're going into a conference room. Like, it's not a basic transition, I'll say. So yeah, it took a little bit longer, but I didn't want to rush it. And I wanted to feel good getting onto the bike because I knew it was going to be a long bike. So I took my time, and I think it paid off the way I wanted it to.
Note with the transitions, there's one thing I wish Ironman would do. Maybe if they ever hear this podcast, they'll know. But like, they like to rate your swim, your bike, your run, and your age group, total first of the day in the app, overall how you did. Like, I don't know why they leave transitions out of these things on all race results. Like, because every race is a little different transition wise. So it'd be nice to know, like, yes, this is a longer transition than a typical. So it would be like, well, how far off is it from everybody? So you kind of know like where you fell amongst transitions with everybody else would be kind of fun. And I think that would kind of help the transitional game a little bit with people because they're getting kind of dinged for like how you did against people in your age group, and that you might like try and that's just something you might try and chop away at in the future. But yeah, it was a little longer than we anticipated with that. I kind of, with Ironmans, I just put a placeholder in there for 10 minutes in both transitions. It usually kind of evens out a little bit at the end. But yeah, some courses are a little tougher. They're a little longer. It's the nature of the game. That's kind of cool that they had something special there. Like, that is just different than cutting out of the water and going into your transition. So yeah, you got that done. Now headed out onto the bike course. You knew you're going to be out there for a while. 112 miles is the name of the game here. Looking at the bike course, Ironman listed at 6,800 feet of elevation across 112 miles. So, how was the bike course as far as difficulty with the terrain? How was it scenic? And then get into like, how you did. How was the fueling versus the vision that you had for the bike course?
So I didn't look at any of, like, obviously when I started doing this, meaning last July or whatever, I had no idea what to be looking for in a race, just know nothing, obviously. And I picked Madison, and really I didn't look a whole lot into it until leading up to the race. And I started watching YouTube videos, and a couple guys were like, hey, don't do this course if it's your first Ironman. So I was like, because of the bike, it's so much elevation. It's like, oh my God. But I got out there, and again, Madison does such a good job from a spectating standpoint. There are people everywhere, just, 30,000 people. You're in Wisconsin, which means everyone's drinking, having a good time, playing music. It's definitely hilly. The first, call it 30 miles out of Madison sucks. The roads are terrible, super bumpy. And I heard someone told me they actually redid them last year and that it was worse the year before, but it's really bumpy, not well paved. It's definitely hilly, which I'll get to. But as soon as you break that 30, you're really in the countryside in a different township or district, whatever you want to call it, with perfect roads. And you're in the countryside. The only people, there's a lot of farms, cattle. There's definitely people, but it's a little bit more strategic. Like all of the tough spots, there's some good climbs for sure. I think there's 3 or 4 spots, and it's 2 loops. So it's kind of like a lollipop. You go out, and then there's 2 loops, and then you go back in this line. But every big climb, there was massive groups of people. My family, I think I saw like 10 times in the bike course, and they were rolling deep. I have 4 sisters. My best friend was there, my parents, my uncle, his wife. And they were all over the place. Like people were saying, is that for you? And I'd be like, yeah. And they're like, that's awesome. Because they were just going crazy, which really helps a lot, obviously. But back to the course, it's definitely hilly. There are some serious climbs. I personally prefer that. I haven't done a flat course. Obviously, this is my first one, but it sounds really boring to me. I don't mind the climbing. I kind of like it. I like the fact that you really have to be on. I think there's 86 turns or something. So like you're constantly thinking about it. It's not like you're just sitting there like, all right, this is taking forever. You have to be on. So the first lap went by really quick, and the second lap wasn't terrible. It was long. I think it was just, I finished right about 7 hours. Your neck's starting to hurt and your feet are getting numb, but I think that's just part of the game. And I ended up riding with some guy who's done it twice, some ex-Marine. He's a beast. But I rode with him for a couple hours, and we were just kind of chopping it up and, talking shop, which helps. And I know you had told me going into it, like, hey, you're probably going to be out there. You're obviously going to be out there for a while. Like, talk to people, see how they're feeling. And it helps when you're saying, God, I can barely feel my neck. My feet are numb. And the guy next to you who's done it 3 times is saying the same thing, right? So it's a tough bike course for sure. If you're confident in your biking and you like biking, like it's super manageable. I'd question the guy that would say, don't do this for your first race. Like, yeah, if you're looking to blow some time out of the water, don't do it. But it's a great bike course. The spectating is awesome. So I'd recommend it.
It's definitely not for the flat dwellers out there. You do have to have some type of elevation to be able to train on there. So if you have just a lot of flat ground on there, you're going to have to put some specificity into your training in order to do pretty well at this. But yeah, just looking at some average splits from last year's race, I found the website on here. I was actually trying to see how it compared with other bike courses because there's tons of data, because you just can never compare 2 courses with each other on the Ironman circuit there. Around your age group, an average bike time there for Wisconsin is somewhere in the high 6 hours, just under 7 hours is for the average times there. You wind up at that 7:12:29 mark. Did you do anything special there at the midway point for your special needs bag or anything like that?
No, nothing special. I did listen to you though, and I basically took a pit stop for a minute. I was like, just get off your bike, because I had done that halfway through the first loop, not a pit stop, but I got off and I used the bathroom and I got back on. I was like, wow, my legs feel really good. And I feel just good getting off for a second. So you had mentioned that. And again, I wasn't looking to break records. So got off, I think I drank whatever I did for a few minutes, and it made a difference. So nothing special with the special needs bag, but besides just kind of refueling. And I think another thing was what I maybe I'd messed up in Muscle Man was just over fueling or just using their fueling. Like with the bike, I only use my fueling. Like I stopped the halfway point of special needs, put the stuff I needed in my water bottles, got the stuff that I like, my gels and my whatever I was going to bring. So it was just, yeah, taking a break for a second, realizing you have another 3.5 hours to go, and following the plan.
Just grinding it out. So you got off the bike, who's good. Looking at it, 7:12 on the bike on a hilly course. You put yourself good. It was just one of those, like, I was tracking him again, swim. I was like, all right, cool. Just a couple minutes behind. Transition, like I said, a little longer. Bike. Let me see where we kind of had you listed on there. We had you for the second pacing plan right around that 7 hour mark. And we're getting to the good part here because I can't wait to hear about the next two things here. Is a couple minutes behind on the pacing plan, but it's just an all day thing there. We weren't falling off or anything. You were just kind of checking the box smooth along the way, just like the tracker just kept popping up and it was steady, steady, steady the whole time. So I knew there was no big hangups along the way on the bike course. I head into T2 there. Basically, right around that 10-minute mark. I think it was 11 minutes you had. Anything crazy or anything go on when you came into?
No, I can't even really remember T2. It was quick. It felt quick, at least. I'm sure it wasn't crazy quick, but no, standard. Just threw on my running stuff. I was feeling good at that point. I didn't feel like my legs were completely shot. It was good to sit down for a second and stand up, really, actually, be vertical. So, no, nothing crazy. Felt good. Saw my family at the turn or at the transition points. It kind of flew by, really.
That's key to what you just said because we're talking Ironman. We're talking you've now been out there you've been up for a while. You're standing in the swim corral. You were out there for an hour 30 on the swim. You're out there for 7+ hours on the bike, and you felt good. You're not going to feel great. If you see that I feel great coming out, like, all right, maybe could have went a lot on the bike. But that's not the goal. You're setting the standard, right? So you just said, I feel good going into the run, which is amazing to have that on an Ironman, to even think that, like, my legs feel good. Like, that's awesome, especially on the first Ironman. That means you really paced yourself properly. Could we have probably pushed the bike a little bit more? Yeah, no big deal. But what are you going to save on there? 5, 6, 7 minutes at the most, with the detriment possibly of saying my legs don't feel that great coming out of the bike, off the bike. So heading on to the run now, we knew it was going to be an Ironman run. We talked about kind of two different time frames in there, but let's get into the run here. Like that first half, that half marathon up until the midway point, how'd the first half go?
So obviously got off the bike. The first, I'd say 5 miles of the run were a little tough. They were very tough. Your legs are still coming back. Your body's not used to standing up. You've been on the bike for 7 hours. But I felt pretty confident about the run the whole time. It wasn't like going into the run, I was saying, oh, this is going to be tough. Obviously, it's going to be tough, but I didn't feel like I was in a hole. So the first 5 miles of the run were tough. And then at like mile 6, my legs just kind of came back. I felt really good at that point. I started hitting my stride and kind of settling into this pace that I really maintained pretty much throughout the whole run, which I wasn't expecting, and we can get into. But the first 13 miles, the first half marathon, I felt really good. I think I was fueling the right way. I didn't feel dehydrated. I felt strong. So it felt really good to run that pace and run that half marathon the way I did. I will say there was a few hills. It wasn't a super hilly course, but there's one part of the run where you have to like cross over this bridge kind of thing, and that part's done. But overall, it felt really good.
Yeah, looking at your splits, looking at your pacing chart here on Training Peaks. We'll get into the overall once we talk about the finish on it, but we're just cracking along. As soon as you jumped out there, I have the tracker here still because Wisconsin's still in there. Coming out the gate there on the run, you got to wait for the first couple segments for their app to kind of like normalize what you're actually running at. But once I started on there, I was like, 10 minutes, 10:05, 10:18. We're at mile 10 now, 10:26. I was like, okay, he's got run legs. Like, because I don't see you that day. I don't have the ability if I'm not at the race to kind of see how you're doing. I'm getting some feedback from people that are maybe tracking you, but I was like, all right, the boy's got legs. Like, let's see what happens here. So you were outpacing the pacing plan basically a little bit, which, hey, again, self-adjusting on that. Like, I feel good. And like you said, adjust, is it sustainable? Am I going to be able to keep doing this? Just looking at on the chart here, yeah, your first 6 miles was at like a 10:37, and then the second 6 miles of that first half marathon 10:25 ish. So you were dead even. First 10K, second 10K, to be at that point and already beating the pace of plan going into the half marathon. It's a crapshoot because like the second half marathon like could suck and fall off a lot, but hey. Let's go. Like, let's see how we feel. We're on our feet. So that halfway point, was there anything you needed from the special needs bag on the run course?
Snickers bar.
Yeah.
You told me to grab a Snickers, and I threw one in there, and it was godsend. Like, you're eating gels all day, you're eating whatever they have, peanuts or little pretzels, I should say, and like oranges, and that stuff helps. I tried to hold out sugar as long as possible because I didn't really feel like I needed it. I didn't want to start. I wanted to hold it until like I felt like I really needed it, or I was kind of collapsing. So I grabbed that Snickers, which you recommended, at the halfway point, and that was unreal. And then I started hitting the Coke every little bit, and that was good too. But Snickers was key.
Well, their motto is not going anywhere for a while, so we might as well dive in. Like, let's do it. And then the second half marathon, like as the tracker kept going, let's pop it up again real quick. So I knew, all right, he may stop, he may do something at the halfway. We'll catch a little blip in the radar there, and then I was like, all right, mile 14 popped on, 10:18. There was some anomaly there. They screwed up mile 14, but
Yes.
then 10:22, 10:38. So I see you hit the 20-mile mark, and I'm like, okay, like 10K to go. Like if this guy can finish this out, he's going to really like finish up his day on a real good high note. And then inevitably, it just looked like a very tiny, and I don't even want to call it a fall off because you did so well. But yeah, after the 20-mile mark on an Ironman, like it's zombie mode time out there. Like people will, and I'm sure actually with that pace, how was it versus, how other people look like they were feeling on the run course? Was it like a lot of people walking 8 stop to 8 stop? Were you passing a lot of people, or were you kind of in the mix with people being able to get the run done at that pace?
So there was a lot of people that I had started with, or you see the same people over and over again, right? Like the guy that I biked with, I kept seeing him in the beginning of the run, and you end up seeing so many of the same people. Not to toot my own horn, but they were not keeping the pace going into the second half marathon or even past mile 20. Like I realized that I was starting to drop people, if you want to call it that, and a lot of people started to walk the hills. They were walking the nutrition stations, which I was doing a little bit here and there, but I really was like maybe being stubborn. Like we're not walking the uphills. Like you're just going to run up them, even if it's a little bit slower, obviously. Like we're just going to keep running because I felt really good. And yeah, I in the back of my head, like you always hear about the runner's wall or whatever with marathons, like at mile, I don't know, 18, 19, 20. I was kind of anticipating that to happen. I'd say at mile 20, I definitely felt a little bit, I don't know, weak, but it lasted for like 3 minutes. There was never a point where I was like, you're falling apart. I don't know if you're going to finish. I just felt really good the whole run, which was awesome. Because again, not to be redundant, but the Madison scene is insane. Like everyone's going crazy. You run through the football stadium twice, like actually through it on the field. So the run was awesome. There's a whole part on the lake which is kind of crazy. You run through this trail on the lake, which is beautiful. But the second half marathon, second loop, it's dark out. And I don't know if their lights went out or what happened, but there was 20, 25 minutes. You're on this, maybe less, I don't know. It felt like a long time. You couldn't see anything. There was no lights, and you're in the middle of like the woods on this trail. You see headlamps, but it was a little, I'll say, sketchy. But it was kind of cool too. You're just kind of like, all right, just keep running. So yeah, I felt like the pace for myself in the second half was really good. Obviously, it didn't really drop off. I felt good the whole time. And once I got past like 21, it was like, all right. And I knew that I was going to be really close to beat 14 hours at that point. So like in my head, we're going to beat 14 hours. And there was this other girl who's great. And she had obviously done a handful of these. It was like, we were probably at mile 21 or 20. And I was like, what time you going for? She's like, we got to beat 14. I was like, all right, we got to beat 14. So we weren't necessarily next to each other the whole time, but like, she'd speed up a little bit. I'd catch her. She'd drop back a little bit. We were with each other the whole time. And then without even noticing it really, we both hit the finish line at the same, or we both hit the carpet at the same time. And I was like, go ahead. So she ran up. Like, we don't want to finish together. We don't even know each other. But we both beat it by like 7 minutes. And I actually ran up to her because I saw a time that said 14 hours and 3 minutes. And I was like, we didn't freaking do it. She's like, no, like someone started their swim, before us or whatever. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So it was cool. Like we kind of banged out the last 6 miles together and both beat it. And it was cool.
That's the name of the game out there is, again, you have this ability, possibly happens more on the longer courses, but yeah, you start to kind of fall in like, yeah, the people that are about to try and beat a certain metric time are going to start to be there on the course together. And again, you might not be able to run exactly the same all the time, but when they're stronger, sometimes you're like in the hurt locker, then all of a sudden you get a little burst of energy and they're starting to fall off. But when you're able to kind of link up out there and kind of help each other, that's why endurance sports is amazing. And I don't even want to say you fell off because actually I'm taking off the time when you probably finished right before you stopped your watch. So the last hour of the run was 5.5 miles and it was a 10:54 pace. Ironman logged your total pace average for the run at 10:31 at a 4:36. And that beat both scenario pacing plans that we had for the day by quite a bit. So finishing off and gaining all that time back, which we spoke about in the pre-race, was like, how fun is it to be able to feel that way on the run if you know you can run? You're heading into this with good run training, as opposed to trying to save that 7 minutes on the bike or 10 minutes on the bike and really blow your legs up for a very long marathon. Possibly, you could have easily fell off minutes on that second half per mile. To have 30 seconds only off your average pace for the last hour of the run on an Ironman is amazing. When you break that down, what it really is like 8 seconds per quarter mile less than the rest of your average. Like that's like nothing. So congrats on that. Finish strong. Yes, you did finish under the 14-hour mark. Official time was 13:53:31. Our like top end, beautiful pacing plan that we put together, if all went well in the world and, we could script a perfect day without having to feel any problems during the day, we probably said your max time is probably going to be at 13:15. There's no way like we were really going to try and shoot to beat 13 hours. But then on the flip side of things, we said, a more conservative day out there would have been like that 14:05, when we did the numbers. So I was like, dude, 14:05. Like, so now we got to find that 5 minutes plus somewhere and maybe beat that 14 hours. Because again, it's just that metric that I talk about with people. Some people don't care, but yeah, if you finished at 14:01 that day and you're like, oh, damn it, like my 17-minute transition, if I would have just cut a minute off that, I would have been under 14 hours. But it doesn't matter because we're sitting here talking about a sub 14 first Ironman. Setting the standard is what I call it, is like, this is the first time you've put yourself through this, first time you've put yourself through these training distances, first time on an Ironman course, and then setting the standard. Like the standard is set now for a pretty technical course to have a sub 14 Ironman. And congratulations on that. You crossed the finish line. What was that feeling like? Just red carpet, finish line. Like, it's it. Like, I'm here now, holding that medal, getting your picture taken. Like, what the hell is in the head at that point? Tell people that haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning actually when I was on a walk. But like you watch all the Instagram videos of finishes and like you're kind of expecting to feel some type of way when you do finish, whether that happens or it doesn't. And it wasn't like, it was awesome, right? You're running through the crowd. It's like a little bit surreal. You really can't really believe it's over because you've been working on it for so long and it's such a long day and you put in so much work. And I was thinking about it like, yes, the finish was amazing, but like when I'm thinking about the day, it's more like I'm thinking about the day itself. I'm thinking about seeing my family after the swim and during the bike and like running with people throughout the race, running through the field. Like the finish is amazing, but I think some of my favorite parts wasn't necessarily the finish. It was, some of these pinpointed moments throughout the race where I really felt pretty awesome, but it's a good feeling. And then you're kind of like, well, what the hell? Now what? You don't have to wake up and bike for 4 hours tomorrow and you don't have some training plan you need to follow. Not that you're just going to do nothing, but it's kind of a weird feeling. It's amazing, but it's also a little bit like, what's next? Or now what am I supposed to do?
I'm going to throw this quote out there. I put it in the group after I posted a picture that day. It's from the Ironman documentary from Brian Rose. And it's the instant you reach your goal, that beautiful emptiness, that Zen moment of no desires, a fleeting few seconds of peace after months of suffering. And we're not talking about that suffering of bad suffering, of just putting the work in day after day. Like you said, you're there. I see, like almost see it in your face or your mental, like you're there. You're just like, fucking now what? Like, but that moment though of that emptiness is like you earned it. Like you earned this. Just like, I don't have to think about training tomorrow. I don't have to think about my recovery. I don't have to think about how much sleep I need to get in the next couple. Like you're just like, huh, like that's it, man. We did it. Like cool. Like almost like it's not much of a surprise because you knew you put the work in. Like, but finally doing it, you probably envisioned it how many times? Like I keep saying, envision the race. You envision it. Like it's almost like you felt like you've been there because you've been thinking about it for so long. Now it's here, and now it's a couple weeks later, and we're just recapping it and shooting it, talking about it. So Ironman, it's there. You did it. I know it's still soon, but would you do another Ironman?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Probably going to sign up for one in the spring, whether that's a full or doing a half and seeing really how far I can push it and how much I can improve my swim and get the legs, just cut down those times and really try to push a fast pace. But I will definitely do another Ironman event regardless.
The good thing is, good training block. When you put in all the work, you have great data to kind of go by for another season of planning and racing. So congrats with that. You put yourself into a good spot there. Let's see what other kind of notes I got here. Just again, congratulations again. We spoke about, okay, maybe another Ironman, but in the interim, back to life, back to things. I think I made a note before we started here was like that balance, right? Like this was a very big part of your year, your season of life for this year. How did you balance that part of it? Yes, some people have families, they have to balance that, but some people are in careers and businesses, and we're all busy and just in different ways. We fill our times with other things. How did you kind of carve out or any sacrifices you had to make for this season of your life in order to accomplish what you did?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think you can balance a million different things, but you don't want to, do something half-assed or lack of better words. So you do need to put some things on the back burner, right? Whether it's starting a business or moving or, other big life events, they need to take a back seat in some capacity, or even if it's just like going to events or doing certain things. And I think that can be a tough thing to grasp or swallow because people are like, oh, you're not going to like come out and do this, or you're not going to be at this. But I think for those who do know you really well, see how much work you're putting in and how much you appreciate it, and are like, it's okay that he's not going to be doing this or whatever. Point being is, it takes sacrifice if you really want to put the right effort into this and do it the right way. You're going to have to prioritize training and recovery and everything that goes into Ironman above other things if you want to go out there and run a good race and really enjoy it. So it's not something that I would say like, hey, just go out. I think you have to really want to do it for the right reasons too. It's like, why would you spend 20 hours a week or whatever it is and thousands of dollars and hours and possibly getting injured to do something that you maybe don't really want to do because it is going to consume a ton of your life.
Yeah. So good point. Making that right decision, making it at the right point. Maybe somebody's looking at it and they're like, yeah, this, listen to Jack talk about it. Yeah, I want to do it. Okay. But is it the right year? Maybe do we have to wait a year? Do you have other things coming up? Are you somebody that's getting married and have these things going on, or a career change in the spring? Like maybe you don't want to do that at the same time. So maybe, wait a year, wait a season. Ironman will always be there ready for you. But again, yeah, it's got to be your decision. It's got to be when you're ready for it and shouldn't be influenced by what you want to see. Like if somebody else doing out there, like, oh, he did Ironman, I want to do one too. Just, like it has to be for you. You have to be all in on it. It's not like the other race distances where you can kind of get through it and do it and get it done. Not to take anything away from those, but like this is just this is big time stuff here. Like it is a huge sacrifice. Like you said, if you want to do it properly and do that. So everyone in your life and your immediate circle, whether that's friends and family, have to kind of be all in on that and hopefully having even a good employer that can help you out with that, and know as you get close to race day, like, I can't be expecting me to stay up all night on these deadlines the week of the race. Like, everyone has to kind of be playing into that and be in your support system in your community. So congrats again, Jack. You have any like final words of wisdom on the journey for this Ironman, or anything out there for the people that are whether they've raced a bunch of times or maybe, but really to that person that's inspiring to step up to distances or even get into any of the endurance sports out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome journey. Like, it's a tough road, I'd say. You have to put in the work, but like you talked about earlier, I mean, it's a lot more than just like doing an endurance sport and completing an Ironman. You learn a lot about yourself, obviously. Like, a year and a half doesn't seem like a long time, but it is a long time, and you kind of progress as a person. And I would definitely recommend people that are thinking about it, like, you don't have to say, oh, I'm going to sign up for an Ironman. Just run like my sister did a half marathon as part of my training, or I did it with her, right? And like, she started to get into running. So go out there and see what you can do, even if it's just like a sprint triathlon. Figure out what you like, right? Like, I know someone who did an Ironman. He's like, it's not really for me, but now he's into ultra running, right? So you don't have to do Ironman, but it's good to test yourself and see what you're capable of accomplishing. So it's been awesome working with you specifically over the past year and a half, and hope to keep doing it. I think what you offer is perfect in terms of, like, you realize people have other things going on in life, and you're not giving up your whole life, right? You still have your friends, your family, you still have to do things. So being able to work around that and to have the flexibility to go out and get it done at the end of the day is important, unless you're a full-time athlete. Yeah, it's awesome. I would definitely, for anyone thinking about it, say get into it, give it a try, and let's like giving it a try. That was not
That's it.
intentional. That was not intentional at all. Yeah, that's about as much as I can say. I'm looking forward to doing another one in the near future for sure.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Jack. Again, I think it's just important, if people like this talk and being able to hear back, even if it's just the coached athletes in the group, like they saw you in the group here and there, and then boom, it comes up on race day. Like, they want to hear about the journey. They want to hear about how your day went, and it's going to motivate people, even if they're training for their marathon or half Ironman. Like, it's just giving them that fuel. Like, yeah, he's one of us. He did it. Like, keep going, keep grinding, and keep getting it done. And keep balancing life 1 mile at a time, basically. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you and your time, for your time jumping on here and saying yes to this, and put it out there for the world to see. Because again, anything that I do, part of it is just like, if it helps one person, if 100 people watch this, but it helps one person out there really make that decision to say, you know what, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign up for it. Like, I'm motivated. Like, that's what this is all about, is pushing the envelope for people out there to, go do big things. So I appreciate it, Jack. Congratulations again. Thank everybody for tuning in. Just want to remember, keep balancing life 1 mile at a time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next one.